they'll be talking to you guys about that.
Good afternoon. I'd like to borrow Mike's idea. Could we all just laugh right now, like on three? 1, 2, 3. Well, thank you. That's the new evangelization. No. What I'd like to do is take some time. I'd like to thank Nolan, Laura, and Mike, obviously Kellenberg and the Society of Catholic Social Scientists for us to be here to talk about some of these initiatives for youth and young adults, and especially in terms of the new evangelization. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. And I'm sure you have 3 questions that you want to ask. Number 1, what is the Catholic Ministry Team? Some of you might even be wondering, number 2, what is the new evangelization? And probably all of you are wondering, number 3, how do Nolan and Mike sculpt their beards and goatees so well? Very well sculpted. We'll see if we can get down to that maybe at the end of the talk if I have a couple more minutes left. But the new evangelization, which we may have heard of or not, or the word is thrown around and sometimes it's not even defined, is really sort of the new call, the new mission that we all have, that we all share as Catholics. And I want to talk in 2 different ways about that. Number 1, I want to talk about some things that are going on in the diocese that are effective in terms of the new evangelization that weren't around 10 years ago when I was growing up. And I want to talk about the lay aspect, which is really the focus of the Catholic Ministry Team and where we are. When we look at the Diocese of Rockville Center has a whole office for the new evangelization, and they run programs, and they really focus on accentuating young adult programs. It's kind of the great wasteland, or the barren wasteland of ministry right now in the Catholic world is young adult programs. Because Life Teen is a fantastic, thriving program, and I recommend it for you to recommend it to your parishes. Mike's a great example of it and a great contact for it. Please talk to him if you want to get that into your parish. But once you leave Life Teen, and once you leave college, and you go into your 20s and your working world in your 30s, it becomes a little less populated in terms of the things that are available. Diocese of Rockville Center has done a really great job in terms of their young adult initiatives in this new evangelization office by putting on programs like Faith on Tap. Faith on Tap is a program where they'll get together, and this happens all over the country, at a bar or a restaurant, and there'll be a topic, and it'll be a catechetical topic that will be going on. And 20-somethings and 30-somethings can come and they can hear about, we've heard about, there was one on natural family planning recently. There was one on how to vote your conscience as a Catholic in an election year. There's been one on the saints. There's been ones on the new evangelization itself. There's one that they just recently had on grieving when you lose people. So it's this opportunity to come together to, number 1, foster community, to be able to say, hey, look, there are other people your age who share your faith, and to get together and build community, but also to learn. I mean, how many of us all need to learn more things about our faith? I know I do. And so that's a great program that they do. They've also done things like, there's a young adult mass that they do where they have fellowship afterwards that travels monthly. They've had a young adult retreat, which was a couple weeks ago. And they've used this office to foster and grow these programs. And that's great, okay? Because the diocese is taking an initiative that we need to have. But there's something else, and I want to talk about the new evangelization itself in terms of what it is, when we talk about where we're going to go from here. And I'd like to, I don't think plagiarize is the word, but I want to borrow from Cardinal Dolan, because he's so much more eloquent than I am. In February, Cardinal Dolan was asked to address the College of Cardinals shortly before he was elevated to Cardinal. And his talk was called The Announcement of the Gospel Today Between Missio ad Gentis and the New Evangelization. And what Cardinal Dolan did was highlight 7 points, pillars, or prongs of the new evangelization. I want to talk about that in connection or in relation to the Catholic Ministry Team work that we do. The Catholic Ministry Team work, Laura is a member of the Catholic Ministry Team. Some of you may know Anthony Muse, who leads worship at the seminary, is a member of it. And then we have, actually we have about 10 people now who are evangelists, who have different callings and ways that they want to go out and talk about the gospel, right? And the Catholic Ministry Team is a lay group. And basically it's a bunch of lay Catholics who have decided that we want to commit in one way or another to serving the church through worship and action, right? To bring other people closer to God and to founding it in the new evangelization. So they're very much intertwined, okay? And I was having a conversation with a guy after an event a couple of weeks ago who basically was expressing his frustration with areas like New York, even areas in the church, where people have heard the message of Christ, or should have heard the message of Christ, and it just hasn't taken hold. And he was kind of like, well, if they've heard it, and if they've chosen to sin anyway, or turn their back on the church, let's forget them, right? And I said to him, no. And he was a little taken aback. This is our call. This is what the new evangelization is. Because we are deemed, when we listen to Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict talk about the new evangelization, we are all deemed missionaries who have to go out and speak to those people who are in our neighborhoods, who are in our schools, who maybe even be in our church, who just don't really care. Maybe they've lost the flair for the introduction to Jesus Christ. And so what we wanted to do as a lay group of people to say, look, we're a part of the community, and we want to have a grouping of people who are a resource who are committed to this. Because sometimes diocesan offices change, right? New directors come in, programs are discontinued. But if you have something that comes from the lay people who's committed to the new evangelization, it can remain consistent. And so we've used the new evangelization, and Cardinal Dolan gives us 7 points to focus us. And I want to talk about those first, before I then talk about what exactly we are doing with that. And the 7 points are this. Cardinal Dolan's first point is, we believe with the philosophers and poets of old, who never had the benefit of revelation, that even a person who brags about being secular and is dismissive of religion has within an undeniable spark, interest in the beyond, and recognizes that humanity and creation is a dismal riddle without the concept of some kind of creator. Translation, Cardinal Dolan saying everyone, even a person who you've met, who is the most turned off to religion you could ever meet, is searching for God, right? If we are charged to be missionaries under the new evangelization, to bring Christ to areas that have forgotten Christ, we have to remember that people who are turned off to Christ are very much searching, and we can't forget that. Cardinal Dolan's second point is we must be not afraid, right? That we have to be convicted, confident, and courageous in the new evangelization. And Cardinal Dolan says, because of the power of the person sending us on the mission, Jesus Christ. Okay. The third point is a necessary ingredient in the recipe of effective mission is that God does not satisfy the thirst of the human heart with a proposition, but with a person whose name is Jesus. The fourth is that Jesus is the truth. And Cardinal Dolan says that our mission has substance, a content, and this 20th anniversary of the Catechism, approaching the 50th anniversary of the Vatican II, and the upcoming year of faith charge us to combat catechetical illiteracy. Okay? His fifth point is that to be an evangelist, to undertake this mission, you have to be a person of joy. Joy is the infallible sign of God's presence. The sixth of the new evangelization is about love, and the seventh is joy, love, and he talks about bloodshed or martyrdom, all right, sacrifice. So we look at that as the overarching view of what our mission is. Now, how do we apply that to see what is successful mission in the world today? And I'd like to take a look at a couple points. Now, obviously, his first 2 points are very general. Number one, we have to be open to everyone. Everyone's searching for Jesus Christ. Number two, we have to be not afraid, right? Those can apply to everything else. So now let's look at what we think has been successful. And the third point is that the new evangelization, right, is not satisfied with a proposition or an idea. It's with a person whose name is Jesus, right? So what is one, and I think the most successful thing that we've seen in terms of the new evangelization currently, it's the return of a trend, or the trend of a return to Eucharistic adoration as a centerpiece of evangelizing. And we can look at that on Long Island. In terms of the Catholic ministry team, we are involved in some different adorations that are successful. Anthony, who has been asked to play at different adorations all over Long Island. The Catholic ministry team provides singers to the diocese for the Holy Hour for vocations. You may have seen some of the artists there. There's a Holy Hour called the Padre Pio Holy Hour in Woodbury, which has confession, adoration, and Mass every first Friday. And what's become with these center points of Eucharistic adoration, number one, you have all those things. You're building community, you're building fellowship. But the other thing is that You don't have to talk to anyone, convince them, or sell them of what's going on. You're bringing them to Christ and letting Him do the work. They're sitting in front of the Eucharist and sitting in front of Jesus, and that's open hearts. The Holy Hour for Vocations, which is run by the Diocese of Rockville Center through their vocations office, has had 600 to 700 teenagers and college students come out over the last 2 months, once a month. And that's centered around Eucharistic adoration on a Friday night. Teenagers, college students are going to it. Eucharistic adoration is working. It's not a thing of the past. It's the wave of the future in terms of evangelization. And that's because Eucharistic adoration focuses people on the person of Jesus Christ, right? That's that third point Cardinal Dolan says. I'm going to skip the fourth for now. I'm going to talk about the aspect of being joyful, right? Talks about being joyful, right? How many of us have had experiences where you go into a church or a talk and everyone's just sitting there, they all look like they haven't had their morning coffee, all right? No one's really excited about what's going on. That could be in school, that could be for a talk, even some homilies. We have to be joyful. We have to engage in fellowship and community. And with the Catholic Ministry Team, one of the things that we've done in that regard is we've tried to focus on adding social or community building events to what we're doing. So we're going to have adoration and we're going to go out after that. But we're also going to plan a night where if we know that there are people who are growing in their faith and want to meet other people, we'll go out to a bar, we'll go out to a movie, we'll go out bowling, right? And we'll make that a center point because building community strengthens the faiths of the individuals who are going there. Because now they have resources, people who will challenge them, support them in difficult times, and it helps them grow. You know, we're communal by nature. The 12 apostles, the early church, Jesus sending disciples out 2 by 2, right? That's kind of how we are. And so it's important to have fun. When we're ministering and when we're doing youth and young adult panels and things like that, it's important to have some aspect of fun and enjoyment with it. And we should have fun because we have something very special, right? We've been given the truth and we've been given the gift of faith, and we should be joyful about that. The last point, I want to combine the 2 points on love, and I want to combine the point on catechesis. And obviously the point on martyrdom, I think we all, you know, in terms of being joyful, we'll probably skip over that for today, so we'll have a little bit more joy. And I think we all know what that's about. The more we live out our faith, the more we're challenged, and we can't be afraid in terms of that. But in terms of the love aspect, we've tried to do in the Catholic Ministry Team was to marry the ideas of faith and some sort of sacramental basis to service, right? We want to combine prayer with service. We want to make sure that while we're praying, that we also are going out and addressing the needs of those who are in need, right? So we've tried to run groupings, Habitat for Humanity to build houses, which in the works of planning a soup kitchen run, where now we take young adults, we give them this communal aspect. There's a soup kitchen that I'm trying to organize right now with the Sisters of the Renewal, right? They have volunteers come out, and what do? They give out food to the needy, and then they have prayer time built in with that, right? So that's one of the things that is in the works that we want to do to provide young adults the opportunity to, in community, both volunteer but also have prayer be a part of that. The last is catechetical, and talking about Cardinal Dolan saying combating catechetical illiteracy, that is so important, right? There are things that we need to do. Number one, we need to talk about the Eucharist, right? We need to talk about the truth, right? And number two, we need to talk about our faith. We need to talk about what we actually believe. We need to learn about that. That's some of the successes of what the diocese is doing with programs like Faith on Tap. But there's also stuff that we can do as well, and especially as lay Catholics, to go out and say, this is what we believe and this is what the truth is. And we can do that a couple of ways. And that's kind of mostly be addressed by one of our Catholic Ministry Team artists, Laura, who's going to come up and speak in a second after me. And what Laura has done, and I'm not going to steal all of her thunder, but she's put together programs and talks geared towards young people, old people, and people of all ages on some heavy issues. Abortion, chastity, raising your teenagers Catholic. It's important to be able to put those out there to say, this is what we believe, this is the truth, this is in line with church teaching, but to be able to do it in a relevant way. So we can plug that Laura's talks are not only available by CD, but in iTunes, right? Because the new evangelization is about reaching people in new mediums and reaching them where they are. So we've got to be young, we've got to be with it, we've got to be technological. We also have, I almost forgot to plug Anthony Muse's CD, worship CD, if you've been to the Holy Hour at the seminary. also available on iTunes, right, in keeping with the new evangelization, right? So to be able to not only provide these things, but to provide it in a medium where young people and where the population of today are going to get it. So basically we wanted to talk about that. I wanted to thank you guys for having us here. And just to talk about some of the successes. And I think if I wanted to leave you with one thought, having participated in the stuff that's going on in this diocese of Rockville Center and stuff in New York City and other dioceses around, one thing I can say is that the church today is young and it's alive and it's relevant and it's good to be Catholic. And we should all be proud of that, right? And so I will close on that note. So thank you very much.
Thank you.